Number one, the content of what we do in our conferences, our meetings, our publications is much more business focused, and that's sort of a niche that we've carved out for ourselves that does make MAPPS different than the other organizations. And number two, why try to compete with or duplicate what ACSM or ASPRS does in terms of certification programs, in terms of standards, and in terms of technical education? They do a very good job in those areas. So why try to compete with and duplicate that? That's ground that's already covered. So our focus has been on business practices, and I think MAPPS has really been a leader in terms of our public policy advocacy, what we do on Capitol Hill, what we do with federal agencies, and what we do in the state legislatures as well.
Somewhat related to maybe a policy issue and dealing with federal agencies, and something that's very timely right now is the LightSquared situation. Can you tell us what MAPPS' role has been and any actions that you may have been involved with involving, the Save Our GPS versus LightSquared situation?
Well, again, I think that's an area where ACSM, for example, has done a very good job. They've been very active, and again, we've not tried to duplicate or compete with what they're doing. What we have been doing is a little bit more behind the scenes. We have been working with the Appropriations Committee on the language that is now on the, or pending on the Federal Communications Commission's appropriations bill that says that that funds would be withheld from the FCC to approve a LightSquared application, so long as it does provide any interference with GPS. We have worked very closely with the FCC. We were one of the first organizations to bring to the FCC's attention the impact that it does have on the surveying and mapping community. We have worked, I think, a little bit more behind the scenes on that issue, but we've been very much part of the broader coalition and lent whatever support that we could in the appropriate time and place. We've worked with, for example, Chairman Graves of the Small Business Committee, who's actually a pilot and has a great understanding and affection for what our members do in terms of aerial acquisition, and he's keenly aware of the impact that it would have on that segment of our membership, and that's helped him get engaged in terms of a hearing that he's held and a letter that he's done to the Federal Communication Commission to speak on our behalf and advocate for making sure that LightSquared does not have an adverse impact on GPS users.
Very good. On another topic, unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, are an increasing topic in our aerial mapping supplements and the regular aerial perspectives column in our magazine. Their use in the United States is limited currently by FAA regulations. Does MAPPS have a position on UAVs, their use? Any views on that topic?
Well, one of the issues that MAPPS has been involved in from the very beginning, and again, this is something that has distinguished MAPPS from the other organizations because of its structure. The fact that we are an organization solely comprised of private sector firms. The issue of government unfairly competing with private enterprise has been one of the holy grails of MAPPS. And the UAV issue is another manifestation right now of unfair competition with private enterprise. Private operators are not licensed by the FAA to operate an unmanned aerial vehicle, whereas a government agency, a university working with a government agency, or a military department can operate a UAV. So what we have been advocating is equal treatment. I don't think, and the MAPPS members do not think, that you can kind of just keep the genie in a bottle. You're not going to prevent UAVs from entering into the airspace in the United States. So having said that, the proper solution is to say there should be equal treatment, a level playing field with regard to both governmental and private commercial operation of UAVs. The sensor technology is evolving to a point where you can put a highly accurate, lightweight sensor into a UAV. There has been some R&D and some testing in that field. And so we have been working with the FAA, with the Congress on this. We have had the FAA on a number of occasions come and meet with MAPPS members, speak at our conferences. We have had a number of sessions going back for several years now in keeping our members apprised of how the UAV market is evolving, how it's developing, both from a technical standpoint in terms of the sensors and the platforms, but also from a regulatory standpoint in terms of when and how will private firms ultimately be licensed and authorized to operate. So that has been a major topic of discussion and conversation and education in MAPPS, and we're hoping that at some point in the not too distant future, our members will be able to operate in a UAV environment as well.
Very good. Your current president, Dick McDonald, recently stated that surveyors and their businesses have largely resisted joining or becoming involved with MAPPS. Do you agree? And if so, why do you believe that's the case?
I don't know that Dick said that they have resisted joining MAPPS. Perhaps we have not focused as concerted an effort as we should on surveying firms becoming part of MAPPS. We certainly welcome pure surveying firms in MAPPS. We have pure surveying firms as members of MAPPS, and a very significant number of our member firms have licensed surveyors on their staff. So I think we are cognizant of the fact that there is a need for surveying firms to be part of MAPPS and a need for MAPPS to have surveying firms as its members. I think you'll start seeing more outreach on the part of our board and our staff in informing surveying firms of the home that MAPPS does provide for them. Again, I don't think it's a case of resistance as it is maybe we need to do a better job of outreach.
In making surveyors aware of your role, your mission, your abilities.
Absolutely. The fact that the issues, whether you're a surveying firm or a mapping firm, or you view yourself as being in one discipline or the other, the issues are transcend those technical discipline differences. Right. And the things that, first of all, that a lot of what MAPPS does is in the name of surveying and mapping. So firms are already benefiting from a lot of what MAPPS is doing in terms of legislation, in terms of public relations, professional image enhancement. They're already benefiting from the efforts of MAPPS, and we will continue that advocacy and welcome surveying firms to join with us.